It may not seem like it, but startup sales can have an ugly side that most people within the business aren't aware of. It is often a misunderstood position inside a business that comes with a huge amount of pressure. This video today is for any founder who is responsible for a sales team or is thinking about implementing a sales team within their startup. It's also for any salesperson who's looking to move into the startup world or is not quite getting the traction that they would like. This pressure, if not addressed, or some of the key topics that we discussed not identified within your business, it can lead to a significant amount of turnover within this department of your business and also affect the growth and scalability of your business overall. So it's really important to be aware of. I've worked at a number of startups over the last 7 years, and it's only with the benefit of hindsight and making many mistakes and having a proactive mindset, learning lessons and having wins and making incremental improvements over time that has allowed me to develop a framework to close multi-million-dollar deals on multi-year contracts. Now, I don't say that to brag. I'm just letting you know that I have watched and observed many salespeople that I've worked alongside with over the years, and some of these lessons are what I've observed over there that have caused them to transition out of the business, and more importantly, not be successful, and more importantly than that, the business not be successful, because staff turnover, particularly in the sales team, can restrict business growth. So the first key observation that I felt personally in a number of roles that I've worked in is sales can be incredibly lonely. When I went into my first startup business here in Australia, the founder was overworked. He was wearing 5 or 6 different hats within the business, and that's not uncommon. When I went into the business, I thought that we'd be working alongside each other. But what ultimately happened was those other hats that he was wearing were drawing his attention away from myself, and I was in the business left to figure out how to sell this high value SaaS product that we had. And it was incredibly lonely when I was working with really exceptional people within the business. You know, the dev team were on 2-week sprints, clearly producing large amounts of work. The project team and the customer success team were delivering on key project outcomes or customer success outcomes. And with sales, it takes a long time to build momentum within the business. And it became incredibly lonely. People were being productive, and it felt like for a period of time, at least 6 months moving into 12 months, as it takes for salespeople to start becoming productive with high-end value deals that they're selling. It's at least 2 times the sales pipeline before a salesperson gets up to speed. So sometimes that can be, 1 year, 2 years before they've hit the ground and they've built up enough momentum to sustain growth. And it felt really difficult to actually share the wins I was having because they weren't apparent at the time. One thing that I learned when I started working at this business was selling SaaS is completely different. If you're coming from another industry, I was selling recruitment at the time. I knew exactly what I was selling. People needed skilled labor on their side to complete work, and people knew what that was. It was a well-defined market. But selling B2B SaaS beginning 7 years ago, when there was often no cloud policies within large organizations, and it was really hard for me to appreciate the culture because my job was facing outwards, is to getting market traction, not inwardly focused within the business. I spent a lot of time on the road, and it wasn't until I started bringing wins into the business that I felt like I was contributing, and that was really, really difficult. I see other salespeople coming into startups and thinking that they're going to get traction right away and thinking that there's a process as well. but it's often not the case. It takes a long time. So what happens is people don't look like they're making progress, or salespeople don't look like they're making progress within the business. And founders don't see the progress being made. So often salespeople will leave after a period of time, 6 months, 12 months, because it's not very easy to do. Salespeople are confident. They're confidence players. They need confidence. If that starts waning, pressure starts mounting on their shoulders, and they will leave the business. And that ultimately stops the business growing. A second lesson that I learned coming into a startup that it wasn't quite apparent when I first started was the immense responsibility that was placed on my shoulders for the company to be successful. Startups have a limited runway, and without sales, that runway ends if they don't get further investment, and the business can fold. It wasn't quite apparent to me at the time, but when it was, I took it upon myself, almost like a founder, to win deals, figure out how to sell, go on the road. And within Australia, the market is small compared to the US or compared to Europe. It wasn't as simple as qualifying an opportunity to see if they wanted to buy what we were selling, because we were a disruptive technology creating a new market category and large enterprise deals. So they weren't looking. So I had to figure out a way to get them to look at the problem that was in every business that we dealt with. But it was actually getting to look at it and schedule it to be solved and buy within a period of time. And that could take, leaving it to their own devices, could take 3 years or 4 years. But I had to figure out a way to get them to solve this within 12 or 18 months. And that was a huge amount of responsibility. This wasn't being done before. High value SaaS, which is what I was selling, somewhere between $25,000 and $45,000 a month for 5-year deals. So somewhere in the range of $1.5 to $3 million for once projects were implementing the solution. This wasn't being done before, in at least in the markets that I know of, and at least in the market within Australia at such a high value. So we're really pioneering a process, and that comes with a huge amount of responsibility and stress. And I've seen other salespeople come in and realize this was too hard. There was no processes within the business to do this. We were really making this up as we go to win more deals. And I remember coming home at night and saying to my wife, I just don't think I could do this. We're just not getting the traction that I thought. And it was only that I made a promise to the founder that I would never stop and keep going, that we ultimately found a way to sell it in a repeatable framework. For this video, I asked myself, what are the key 3 factors that people may not know about? That is the dark side of sales for a startup. That is, it can be incredibly lonely in the sales team, particularly an early stage startup when there may only be one other salesperson within the business or 2. The second one is that the immense amount of responsibility that's placed on those salespeople's shoulders, particularly if it's a sales-led business. And number 3 is a lack of process. If you're a SaaS founder, you must be a subject matter expert in the problem space that your product solves. And it's your tacit knowledge that will help the sales team unlock sales opportunities. Leaving them to their own devices is really outsourcing the challenge of sales to somebody else. And you really don't know if they're being successful. And it puts a huge amount of responsibility on their shoulders. The longer a sale cycle is, the more the pressure mounts, because the salesperson doesn't know if they're really doing the right thing until a sale comes off. And a lack of process. Now, if you're a technical founder, or if you're a new salesperson within a business, you may not be an expert in B2B SaaS sales process, but adopt a framework to help you at least start adding bits to it that are relevant to your business. Now, this video isn't about me trying to help you with my sales framework, but if you do need that, you can book a strategy call down below. But at least work to a framework together and actually improve it over time. High value B2B SaaS is difficult, especially when there are multiple buying personas involved in that decision with your target organizations. Trying to sell or giving them the information or leaving them to their own devices to get to a buying decision is not enough in today's world. Our buyers are more sophisticated. They have more access to information, which means they can draw their own conclusions more easily without the influence of you. We have to be more proactive. Now, if you're stuck with your B2B sales process, or if you're not getting the traction that you would like, or you're having more turnover in that team than is normal, down below I have a 15-minute strategy call. Book in a time, let's have a chat, and I can point you in the right direction. Also, up here, there's a playlist that will have multiple different videos about the B2B SaaS sales process. Good luck on your journey. If you make incremental improvements over time, you will get better in your SaaS sales process, but it needs to be deliberate and not haphazard. So thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.